am recording this webinar, so you can share it with your teams. You can watch it again. I'll be sending it around right after we finish up today or tomorrow morning. So my name is Annie Wheeler. I am the Digital Communications Coordinator with DC Central Kitchen and the Campus Kitchens Project. So I know some of you from working on Raise the Dough last year, working on other projects throughout the year, but I'm thrilled to be back for, this is my second Raise the Dough, and many more for many of you. So we'll go ahead and get started. Like I mentioned, this is going to be the best practices webinar. So I'm going to do a quick run through of all of the basic information just to make sure that everybody's on the same page. We did have a Raise the Dough 101, sort of the basics of Raise the Dough last week. That also was recorded and is now on the center and on our YouTube channel. If you have trouble finding that, feel free to reach out to me. I'll be more than happy to send that your way. That is sort of a more basic overview of what Raise the Dough is, especially for people who have not participated before. But just to run through sort of a basic overview. So Raise the Dough is a week-long online fundraising competition where campus kitchens compete against one another to see who can raise the most amount of money and also who can rally the most amount of donors. Then the most successful schools win prizes. So this year, our Raise the Dough will be happening February 16th to the 23rd, and that's a Friday to a Friday. It goes from midnight to midnight, or midnight to 11:59 p.m. So you have that window to compete. Last year, for Raise the Dough, just to give you some context, as a network, it wound up being 26 schools participated, and as a network, we raised over $50,000 with over nearly 900 individual donors. And just a note that in the first $7,500 of the campaign last year were all in donations $100 or less. So I really want to stress that the reason that we really push rallying the most donors is because this is a great opportunity to really focus on those grassroots donations and bring together people. You know, they might be donating $5 or $10 at a time. It's not they're going to be donating huge amounts of money, but you can really be successful even with small amounts in donations. So why compete? Because there's really no downside to it. There's no everything that you can get out of everything that you raise for through the fundraiser comes back to your campus. We actually knew this year there are no overhead platform fees. So that's a big highlight for folks who have participated in previous years. The only fee that you'll have to worry about are credit card fees, and I actually will talk about that in a couple of minutes, but there are some options for your donors to help you cover those fees as well. But there are no Razoo platform fees and there are no CKP fees. So the only thing that you have to worry about fees-wise is the credit card fees that I mentioned. So again, like similar to last year, the prizes are first place is $1,000, second place is $500, third place is $250, and then the most donors is $750. And that really just hammers home that idea of really getting, many individual donations. You're not necessarily going out and looking for huge dollar donations, but you can really focus on those small donations, and that's what we really want to focus on as a network and as this campaign on a whole. So that's why that most donor prize is the most, or the second most amount in the prizes. Last year we actually did have, for the first time in Raise the Dough history, we had a tie to the dollar for first and second place, and so we ultimately combined those two prizes and then split them between the two schools that came in first. So that will be, should that happen again, that will be how we'll handle that. Quick overview. I know a lot of you all know this already, sort of this breakdown, but sort of just going to run through really quickly what we at CKP National do versus what you as the affiliate fees will do. So we take care of setting up, we take care of all of the Razoo setup fees. I'll create sample social media posts for you, graphics like the one that you see here, a template press release that you can share with your networks, sample emails. We'll sort of create a nice outreach package for you to share with your networks. We also do national promotion. So from all of our handles, from our email to our email lists, we will share information about the campaign as a whole. We certainly don't play any favorites, so we're not going to, necessarily just be sharing the link to one particular school, but we're going to share information about the campaign as a whole. So hopefully that'll reach more people even outside of your direct network. We provide the prizes. And I just wanted to highlight again, like I mentioned before, that we're taking care of all of those fees for you. So more money, every donation is going to come back directly into your campus kitchen. So then on the flip side, what we expect of you. So the first thing that you need to do is complete the MOU. I'll talk about that in just a moment. But making sure that that gets in by February 1st. Then it'll be up to you. I will create the template for your page on Razoo, which is the fundraising platform we use. And then you'll go in and personalize it. And I'm going to do a little bit more of a deep dive into what that looks like, what some of the Razoo changes are. They've rolled out some changes this year as well. So I'll show you all that in just a couple of minutes. It'll be up to you to get the word out. Ultimately, this campaign is about as much as you put into it is what you're going to get out of it. So if you really get the word out, if you share the information about your Raise the Dough campaign, you're going to get more out of it than if you just post once and then don't revisit it again. So it's really up to you to communicate that this is happening, connect with your donors, identify community members who will support you. Maybe that's by sharing information, maybe that's by making a donation, but that's going to be on you. So that's the biggest part of your responsibility. And then obviously just competing the week of. So ultimately, we take care of all the logistic side things and really try and make this as easy as possible for all of you to compete, because we want to give you this opportunity to really focus on fundraising for your school and making it a successful campaign. So I mentioned the MOU, or the Memorandum of Understanding. You all should be familiar with some version of this. We use it for a variety of our campaigns and events. But basically, this is a document that someone at your school signs, and then someone at CKP, our director, will sign this on our end. So we have a signed agreement that says that the competition will run from February 16th to 23rd, that only donations made online will count. You can certainly raise money offline and then add them online, but you can't say, oh, hey, we also raised this, through a bake sale. We also raised $100 through a bake sale, but we haven't put it online. Then the sort of legalese part is that we are lending you our 501c3, which means that your any donations can be tax deductible. And I'll talk about that when we talk about those thank you notes, but Razoo will automatically prompt a tax receipt or a gift receipt that'll get sent to your donor, so you don't have to worry about that. And then finally, it just says that Razoo deducts a credit card processing fee. So that, like I said, is due by February 1st. You can find it on the center, which I'm going to show you guys in just a second where to find that. And then you can either resubmit it on the center, or you can send it directly to me when you all have my email for the invite for this information session, or you can send it to your PM or alumni advisor and it'll make its way back to me. But submitting your MOU is the must. That tells me that you want to compete and to go ahead and make a page for you. So if you have any questions about that, if you're worried about that deadline, if you're not sure who to have sign it, feel free to reach out to me or your PM or alumni advisor. I also just want to share that we have talked a little bit about this in the past, but haven't, I know some people don't know that this has been an option, but if you want to use Razoo at another time during the year, you absolutely can. We would just need to do another MOU similar to this. Obviously, it would be without the competition and various deadlines there, but we can set up a fundraiser if you're, feel like you all of a sudden, need a new fridge, or if you are crunched for funds, then we can certainly help you set something like this up for another time during the year. So just keep that in mind. So I mentioned being able to find those MOU actions on the center. So if you're not familiar with the center, if you're not logged on, please let me know. I'm more than happy to get you all set up and bring you over onto the Campus Kitchen Center, which has a variety of actions that you can complete. So on your dashboard under events, which is what's dropped down right now in that photo, you'll see under Raise the Dough, there are 3 different actions, one of which is the MOU that's due on the 1st. You get 200 points for that, so that's a great thing to get some extra points to earn some prizes. You can, just because you were here and participated in this information session, you can get 50 points, so definitely go check that action out after this is over. And then some of those resources are also in there, so we've got some best practices for you. Those don't have points associated with them, but it is something, just some good resources and best practices. And I will be sending all those out to all of the schools participating later on as well. All right, so I'm going to walk through a quick timeline. This is one of those resources. The timeline in more detail is one of those resources that we will be sending out once you've decided to compete, but just sort of an overview. So between now and February 1st, hammering home, getting your MOU in, joining these information sessions, and then also it's a great time to start to meet with your leadership team, and especially as you're coming back onto campus for the new semester, this is a great time to start to plan and sort of bring the team together, think about what your goals might be, and maybe assign some roles for your various leadership team members. But this is a really, really great time to start to have some preliminary meetings about that. February 1st through the 14th, you'll get access to your Razoo page. I do want to emphasize not to start to publicize your Razoo link too early, because only the donations within the window of the 16th to the 23rd will count. So you'll get access to it, and you can go ahead and start to personalize it, and that's what we're going to take a deep dive into in just a second, and set your goals, put up pictures or videos, tell your story. That's a great time to start thinking about it. Then the couple of days, the week of Raise the Dough, is a great time to start promoting that it's happening. So that's a good time to sort of start talking to, putting it on social media or sending an email out, connecting with potential donors. A really great tip is to line up a couple of donors who will come through for you. Maybe that's friends and family, or previous donors from Raise the Dough campaigns in the past. Line them up so that they will donate on the first day of Raise the Dough, because if it looks like you're doing well and there's already some donations, there's a better chance that other people will donate as well. It's that concept of sort of feeding the tip jar. So you'll often see at a coffee shop or that there's already money in the tip jar, and they've usually put it in there to sort of say, hey, people are already donating or tipping us. So that's a great way to really start off the week strong, get some momentum, and then keep going. And then obviously the 16th to the 23rd is Raise the Dough. So I'm going to pull up last year's. I'm going to go through a couple of things for you. So first of all, I just want to share last year's page. So you'll see, for those of you who are have participated in Raise the Dough before, you'll notice that these look a little bit different. Razoo has rebranded a little bit, so I personally really love it. I think it has a really nice look to it now. But our team page has a nice picture. This is the team page. This is not an individual page, but you'll see, like I mentioned, we raised over $50,000 with 896 donors during that week last year. And drop down, and this is so you can see the leaderboard, and you can keep clicking through it. I'll send this link out as well after the webinar, but you can sort of get a sense of sort of the range of what people raised, and you can dive into each one of their pages to see what kind of story they put up, or maybe it's your page from last year. You'll have access to that because we use the same accounts each year. So once I give you access to your new page, you'll be able to look back at previous years. And so maybe if you weren't the one who ran it last year, you can get a sense of what your teammates did. So just show you for an example, this is Raise the Dough. This is for Gettysburg's page. So just to give you a sense of a really well put together page, they've got a really nice image here that has the Raise the Dough logo. That I can share that with you all as well. They immediately get out and tell you what they're looking for and what they're raising money for. So Gettysburg was specifically raising money for their Healthy Options program. So they wrote a great story here about what that is, what it means, and then how your donation will help. So they did a really great job of really personalizing that and sharing that information. Another great tool to use are the custom donation levels. So I'll show you in just a second how to edit those, but basically there you can dive in and put a different level for every for at least 4 donations. So in this case, their example was at $25 that would provide a family with 2 weeks of fresh produce. So for example, if somebody was coming on and planning on making a $20 donation to Gettysburg, maybe they'll bump up to $25 because they see that will really, that extra $5 will make sure that the family gets 2 weeks of fresh produce. So this is a great way to often round up your donations, so you can be thoughtful about that, but it also really gives a very concrete and real item or amount, or gives an image to what that money is going towards. So somebody may not know, okay, I'm going to give $25 to Healthy Options. They may not know what that means to Gettysburg and to Healthy Options program. But when you break it down like this, it really gives some more context and gives real meaning to what those dollars are going towards. So you can I would definitely recommend customizing these along the way. So I'm going to flip this. This is the page for this year. You'll notice I'm logged in, so you'll see a lot of editing buttons along these lines, but this is wanted to give you an idea of what we'll be looking at for this year. And similar to last year, it's sort of the breakdown of, we'll have all the teams in the leaderboard here, and then our goals up top as an organization. But I also want to show you for just a moment. Breakdown here. My page isn't up here. But I wanted to take a minute to give you some ideas of what some of the customization options are. So like I mentioned, there are a variety of options you can think about as you customize your page and thinking about, do you want them to be able to leave a comment? I definitely recommend it because it's nice to be able to really show everyone what great, there's a great way to share good times or good things that people are talking about or excited to donate to you for a variety of reasons. I also would encourage you to check that collect address information, and I'll talk about that when I mention thank you notes in a couple of minutes. But that's a great way to be able to connect with your donors, and you maybe will connect with somebody who you didn't know was in your community but is really supportive of your work. All right, so we'll jump back over here. All right, so getting into some of those best practices. So a couple of tips that we definitely want to share. First of all, incentivizing the competition can definitely go a long way. So that's actually what the photo here is. Lindsay Wilson had made a goal and said if they hit this goal, then they will pie several of their leadership team members in the face. They've got a great video on Facebook of them doing that. So think about creative ways. Maybe it's you're offering a service for, if you hit for the 100th donor, Or if you hit a particular mark, maybe somebody, someone well known on your campus will drive someone around all day. So be creative about thinking, things that aren't going to necessarily cost you more money, but that you can use to really drive people to help contribute to your goal. You can also think about competing against another school. So perhaps there's another school participating who is a sports rival or is, in the same state as you. You could say, which of our Georgia schools is going to raise the most money and raise the dough, and you could sort of form a little group and decide, compete against each other in just sort of a mini competition within the overall competition. Those are really great ways to incentivize people to donate. Absolutely set realistic goals, but then don't be afraid to change your goal. You can change your goal part of the way through, depending on how you're doing. You may blow by your goal and you want to set something out a little bit further, or maybe you get part of the way through and you feel like it's, maybe it's not as reasonable, but it'd be more reasonable to hit, a goal that's a little bit less. You can absolutely change that part of the way through, but do try and be realistic when you set your initial goal. I can't emphasize enough developing a plan ahead of time. It's a great idea to identify one person on your leadership team to have the lead and sort of be the manager of this campaign, and certainly they will delegate to other folks, but it's a great idea just to have one person who is really in charge of directing, because that week can get really crazy, especially if you're trying to do too many things, or maybe you get a surprise big donation and you blow by your goal. You want to make sure that you have one person who's going to be able to say, we're going to post this on social media, or we're going to send this email. Try and sort of make that structure and plan ahead for that. Also, preparing content ahead of time is really great, and thinking about preparing for it could be a positive outcome, it could be a negative outcome, but making sure that you have content prepared for social media, for emails. It's going to be really hard to try and keep up with everything that's going to happen. It'll happen pretty quickly, and that week, like I said, that week will fly by. So be ready to go with any sort of potential outcome of emails and content to be able to get ready and just be able to hit send when the time comes. Like I mentioned earlier, don't underestimate those small donations. They are really fantastic, and they will make up so much of your ultimate total. So it's okay to make those smaller asks. It's $5 is the minimum to donate on Razoo, and so it's a really easy way to just say, do you have $5? Maybe you're replacing 2 coffee runs this month by giving $5 to raise the dough. So you can think about it in that context as well. And then my last 2 here are pretty actually tied together pretty closely. So don't underestimate the power of an in-person ask. So yes, it's an online fundraiser, but you really don't need to rely on just being online or just being on social media or just sending emails. Going to people and asking them for donations, it is a really, really powerful way, because the more you personalize it, the more likely someone is going to be to donate to you. So maybe you are set up in your dining hall or student center or a gym somewhere that's got a lot of foot traffic with a computer, ready for those donations, and your team members to be able to make those asks as people come by, and really tell them why you're doing what you're doing, what work you do, and you can really make that personal. So on the outreach front, like a segue as well, I just was talking about making it personal. I think that's in any story you write, in any conversation you have, it's really important to want to drive home why you're doing what you're doing. You can think about your story, think about why you started volunteering with Campus Kitchens. You can share that information and think strategically about how it's going. Adding photos and video is also a great way to add sort of that extra bump to your page or your emails or your social media. The more photos you have, the better. Videos are even better. Certainly videos are a little bit tougher, but for those of you who, maybe those of you who participated in a launch grant competition, you can go back and use those videos. They are a great way, just a general overview of what your campus kitchen is. But also, use a smartphone or, contact your communications department, see if they'd be willing to help you either come and take really nice pictures or, help you with record a video with just a little bit of an overview of what Campus Kitchens is, because that's going to go a long way. Think about donors who have helped you in previous years. So if you've participated in Raise the Dough before, we will have access to your donor lists from previous years. So I'll send those around or help you find them if you don't know where to find them. So I would start by reaching out to them, because if they've donated to you before, it's pretty likely that they'll donate again. So think about an outreach to them specifically. You can also think about who else in your community might be willing to donate. Would it help to go to each of the departments who supports your work and ask them for a donation, or I'll just ask them to share information. But think outside of the box about who might be a potential donor, and the more you get it out, the more you share information about Raise the Dough, the better chances you'll have of getting those donations. So be prepared too, on the flip side, be prepared for your supporters to say, no, I'm sorry, I can't donate right now, I don't have any money, or, I don't have a credit card on me or anything like that. Have a plan B ready to go. So if your initial ask didn't work, you can turn around and say, okay, that's okay, but here is some information that you can share for me, or could you please go online and share my Facebook post about Raise the Dough with your network. Those are really great ways. They're free, they're easy, and like I said, the more you get that word out there, the better off you are. So I said, just to reemphasize, I know I mentioned developing a plan in the fundraising, but developing an outreach plan here is really important as well. And like I mentioned, really preparing for, the people who will say, yes, of course, I'll donate to you, without blinking an eye, but also the people who might be a little bit of a tougher ask. So it's a great thing to do is practice with friends, with your advisors. That's a great way to sort of practice those asks. I know asking for money is not always the easiest thing to do. So if you, certainly practice will get you closer. It may not be perfect, but the more you try and the more you do it, the more comfortable you'll be asking. Keep your audience updated. Think about making that plan for how are you going to communicate with with people who have donated or have yet to donate, maybe with your Facebook audience, with your Instagram audience. Make sure you keep them updated. You don't want to be careful not to completely overwhelm your audience with posts, 10 posts a day, but you want to keep them updated to say, hey, we're halfway to our goal, or, we've surpassed 100 donors, or hey, we're in first place. Those are great ways to keep them updated about what's going on. And then make sure you say thank you. A thank you can go such a long way, and especially thinking, to previous years or to future years, if you said thank you or wrote a nice note to a donor last year, they'll probably remember that, and they'll they're more likely to come back remembering that, they had gotten this nice note. And I mentioned those addresses earlier. It's really, I think it can go a long way by just writing a nice handwritten note. If you get your leadership team together, for a night, you get pizza and power through some thank you notes. That can go such a long way. The written thank you notes are not as common anymore, and it can mean a lot to your donors, especially if you're in, no matter what your community is, they're really going to see that and really appreciate that you took the time to say thank you in person and not just, as a blanket Facebook post. Those are awesome too, but it's that extra personal touch that I was talking about. Specifically on the media and branding front, so consistency is really key. You want to stay consistent across all of your platforms. So as you're drafting content, it's certainly, I know it can be tough to draft content for many different platforms. Obviously, Twitter, and the characters have limitations. different limitations than Facebook might or than Instagram might. But as much as you can, make sure that your story is consistent across all of your platforms. Another great thing to do is think about, maybe there's a particular theme or campaign that you can pull out for Raise the Dough specifically. So some of you will remember the I Fight Hunger Because signs, and if not, I'm more than happy to send you the template for that. But basically, people wrote why they fight hunger on a piece of paper, took pictures, and then posted it on social media. So maybe that's something that you can use during Raise the Dough to really raise awareness. But if you have sort of a series of photos or of videos, then that's a really nice way to sort of tie together what you're doing with Raise the Dough. You can use this example of the infographics that we made this year. If you did not get one, you did have to ask for one. I put a call out this summer, then offering to create these for anyone who wants them. So if you did not receive an infographic but would like one, please let me know, and I'll be more than happy to put one together for you to use throughout this campaign. Down at the bottom there, this example is Baldwin Wallace's. Down at the bottom, you can see the breakdown of what you did in your community last year versus just above that, what we did as a network. So that can be a great tool to share, especially as you're thinking about reaching out to media. If you're reaching out to your communications department, this can be great for context that very easily in a one-page format says, we are part of a national network, the nation's largest student movement to end food waste and hunger. Here's what our network did, and then here's what we did. So this can be a really great one-pager just to share with the media, or like I said, your communications department is a great resource as well. Always make sure that you include during the week, the actual Raise the Dough week, make sure you include the link to donate in all of your posts. On Instagram, you can change the link that's in your bio to your Razoo page link. You can add that in a variety of places across social media. You can pin tweets and Facebook posts to the top of the feed, but always make sure that you consistently have that link ready to go, because you never know what post might strike someone to say, hey, I want to donate. And then use the hashtag #RaiseDough. That's a great way to connect you with the rest of the fundraisers. It's also a great way for me to keep track of everything that you're doing, and then I can highlight cool stories and also use some in follow-up for our blogs and web stories after the fact to be able to share with the network. So please use that hashtag just so we can see all the great things that you're doing. All right. So I do want to open it up now to any questions or anything that you guys want to talk about and sort of walk through. I'm more than happy to facilitate this more as a conversation, or just ask if you guys have questions. You can go ahead and you can use the chat box on the side, or you can just unmute yourself and then ask the question out loud. Do we have any questions right off the bat? Also, while we're waiting for you guys to, if you have any, speak up and have any questions, and I promise there are no silly questions, so please feel free to ask. I will just also plug that we do have another information session next week. It's next Wednesday at 3 p.m. It's going to be sort of similar to the first one that we did, which was Raise the Dough 101, which is the basics, and I'll go into a little bit of what we talked about tonight, but I'll really be sort of a little bit more general. That's sort of our opportunity to grab folks who might have been on break still during the first one or just coming back. So feel free to pass that information along as well. So we've got in the chat box, it looks like we have an ask from Alex. Can anyone share what has worked in the past? Maybe some good examples for schools who have not participated before, done something differently. I know we've got some folks on the line who have participated before. So if anyone would be willing to just share maybe what's worked really, really well for them in the past? You know, one thing, I don't think we have Jenny on the phone tonight, but one thing that St. Louis did last year was to do a competition about halfway through um, with, I believe, WashU was the competition. They started one up. Looks like Stephanie says we did a lot of work on social media. We had one day dedicated to the work to getting the word out in person and online. Stephanie, do you want to elaborate a little bit on that? The having about had having one day dedicated to getting the word out. You can certainly voice that or write it in the chat box. That's up to you. She might be writing. So in the meantime, I'll also share. Kaylee said, be sure to have your whole leadership team involved and send information to parents. That's absolutely true. So think about, even if your parents aren't, in your immediate community, they have networks too. They can share them with their friends and family, and share it along their networks, and absolutely not only ask them for the donation, but also give them the content to be able to share. So give them a sample email that they can share with their friends and family. So yeah, that's a great point about using this as an opportunity to share your story and mission with the community. Absolutely true. This is a great opportunity and a reason to really get the word out there about what you're doing. Excellent. So Stephanie shared a follow-up to her comment about the one day. She said, sure. So we had one day where we addressed a lot of our partners and previous donors as a group. We did a small speech about the program before asking people to give. That's a great way to do it. And think about, she had the link printed so that she could do handouts. So certainly thinking about doing an information session, or maybe is there another event that might be going on already that you can tag onto. Those are some great thoughts, and really being in person, like we talked about earlier, that can make it really successful, to make that ask in person. Even though it's an online crowdfunding fundraiser, doing that personal ask really brings it home. See, it looks like new for UGA this year, trying to solicit donations from businesses so that they can incentivize student participation. That's a great idea, and thinking about those community members. Kaylee, if you don't mind adding, are there particular businesses that you have already have relationships with, or are you looking for those new relationships that you maybe haven't worked with them before? Excellent. She said some current, but mainly new. This is a really great opportunity to think beyond just raise the dough and getting these donations, which is an awesome place to start. But some of these partnerships and the community members may also be a long-time support for you. It might be, maybe it's a new food recovery partnership that will come out of this, or maybe it's a new site to be able to host a fundraiser. You can be creative about making those relationships, and thinking about them above and beyond just the raise the dough element. Any other questions? So let's see, I'm looking at some of the questions that we had before people who submitted questions earlier. When do we receive login information for our account? How do we advertise the fundraiser? So we talked quite a bit about sort of getting the word out there, but you'll receive the login information depending on when you get your MOU to me, sort of first come, first serve. So the earlier you get your MOU, the earlier you get the login to your page, but it will be before February 14th. I will have all of the pages set up and ready. My goal is for the 8th or the 9th. All right, well, if there aren't any other questions, then we'll go ahead and wrap it up for tonight. I really appreciate you all joining us, sort of a busy time of the evening. So please feel free to follow up with me with any questions that you might have, or like I mentioned, your PM or alumni advisor. My email is right on the screen here, but I'll also be emailing you all in the morning with the recording and some of these materials as well. But I look forward to seeing all of your success on Raise the Dough next month. And thank you all again for joining us.